This video briefly discusses some of the basic or fundamental concepts of computer programming. Sometimes we refer to it as coding. Either way, it's coding or computer programming is about instructing a tool such as a computer to perform meaningful or useful tasks. Currently, Python is one of the second most widely used programming languages, JavaScript being number one. And this language is used in industry to create a wide variety of meaningful tasks and applications. Programming languages such as Python are composed of special statements, often referred to as objects and constructs, and they are used to create a variety of programs and apps. Two of the basic objects or constructs you're being exposed to are string literals and variables. If you have a textbook for the course, you'll find these concepts in Chapter 2. String literals it's a string or a group of characters. They're treated as one entity. So this string or group of characters being treated as one entity is surrounded by delimiters that we call single quotes or double quotes. That is to say, when you see a single quote at the beginning of this string of characters and at the end, they act as delimiters to specify this is where this string or group of characters start, and this is where this group of characters end. Because after all, they're treated as a single entity. For example, I may have a string of characters. I am learning how to code in Python. And then you notice that it starts off with a single quote or a double quote rather. In this case, it ends with a double quote. They can also be represented by single quotes. Here's some other examples of string literals. Notice that they start off with a single quote and end with a single quote. It could be a string of alphabetic characters, alphanumeric, that is, you can have letters, numbers, and special characters. Or you can have a string of just numbers. However, the computer looks at it as one entity. It doesn't break each character up as being distinguished. One characteristic about string literals, they are immutable. That is, they cannot be changed after they are created. Another object or construct that most programmers are exposed to initially when they're starting to learn the concept of programming are variables. And of course, we use variables in mathematics to represent values. However, in the computer, a variable acts as a memory location. They are objects used to store data in RAM memory. A variable is assigned a name so the programmer may be able to reference it later on. To create a variable, you just assign a value and then start using it. So we make the assignment. We say the assignment is done with the single equal sign. And so you'll say, I'll use the variable called value is equal to 1700. Or student underscore name is equal to James Ellis, enclosed in quotes. Now, we'll talk a little bit later on about how to name variables, because there are rules that governs how you name variables. And I am reflecting on some of the rules that we use in the language Python, although these rules may actually be transferred to any other languages. Student underscore name, and underscore can be used in a variable name. But one attribute that you will see is that a variable name cannot have any spaces between them. In other words, student name I can't say student space name. I can say student underscore name. Student number. I'm using what they call the camel case rule that governs. You can run the numbers, the letters together, but the first letter of the second word has to be in capitalized. That's why we call it the camel case. Okay, so equal. Let's say equal. Like a student number is equal to, let's say, 8977002 pound sign or something like that. Think of a variable as a name attached to a particular object. So this is attached to this object, and this object is stored in memory. And the reason we do that is so that the programmer can go and be able to reference that variable later on and tell the computer to disclose or display what's in that variable name. In Python, whatever the programmer stores in a variable name, it determines what kind of data is stored in the variable or what the data type is. Some programming languages require the programmer to specify or to declare in advance what kind of data is to be stored in the variable. Otherwise, it can even be referenced or used. So in some languages, before the variable can be used, it has to be specified at the very beginning of the program. This is an integer that we're using, or this is a real number. An integer is a whole number. A real number would be whole numbers with decimals. Or we're going to display alphanumeric or a string of characters. However, in Python, as soon as the programmer says value is equal to 1700, the computer says this is an integer. Or if they go back and say value is equal to help me, it becomes a string. So it can change, although you do not want that to happen. That's not normal, but into the computer, it would be different. Value is equal to 1700.88. That's a real. Student name is equal to James Ellis. That's a string. Student number is equal to, and I'll just say 89924 899347 as the student number, and I'll add double quotes. Now, if I left it as 899347 without the double quotes, the computer would look at it as a whole number or an integer. So thus far, we've talked about string literals, variables, and data type. In the next video, we're going to actually demonstrate what all this theory means. Theory is great, but unless it's applied, it's actually abstract, and it's actually not very relatable until you start actually applying these concepts. Stay tuned for the next video.